So the next session features 5 speakers in various roles within the nonprofit sector to help give you an idea of the different career paths available to you as future employees. So help me welcome Jeff Evans, Director of Public Policy at the American Society of Association Executives, ASAE, Brandy Swimeley, Vice President of Integrated Marketing at Defenders of Wildlife, Rich Kostro, Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Share Our Strength, No Kid Hungry, and Brian A. Cowart, Chief Development and Marketing Officer at United Service Organizations, USO, as well as Jack Griffin, CEO and founder of FoodFinder. So welcome to you all. Thank you for being here with us today. And I'm going to jump right in. Jeff, I want to start with you. If you could tell us a little more about what you do in your day-to-day role in public policy, including skills and education and just background of how you got started.
Sure. Thank you, Shelby. It's great to be here. I appreciate the invitation and appreciate being alongside these other esteemed speakers. So I'm Jeff Evans, Director of Public Policy for ASAE, as you heard. And ASAE is unique in terms, and similar with the Nonprofit Alliance in terms of its very large umbrella. We are, for all intents and purposes, the Association of Associations. And associations are a segment of the broader nonprofit community. I think most of our discussions will revolve around organizations that are known as 501c3 organizations. That's your typical nonprofit, advocacy-based, maybe membership-based. I work for a 501c6 organization, and I apologize for getting very specific early on, but there are important differences. C6 organizations, those are associations, a collection of like-minded individuals and or organizations that work together toward a common cause. And some of those might be chambers of commerce that coalesce the business community. And C6s are unique because they can lobby a little bit more. And that's what I do. I lobby for the association community, which again is a segment in the broader nonprofit community. I graduated from college in 2009 and have been in the nonprofit association community my entire career. First half or so in the C3 space, second half in the C6 space as I started to grow into my lobbying profession. And I know that some people hear lobbyist and they might have some well-founded assumptions. I certainly don't hold that against them. But lobbying advocacy is a critical part of the way this country operates. You take any issue, good or bad, however you feel about it, there is probably someone behind that issue advocating for it in the legislative and policymaking space. And that's what I do for the broad association community, irrespective of a segment of the economy that an association might work in, agriculture, manufacturing, whatever. I represent the entire community just by their nature of being an association. So an example of something I work on is related to workforce development and a bill we are trying to get introduced, fingers crossed it will be so soon, that if somebody during this COVID era, if they exhausted unemployment benefits, they could receive financial assistance to go toward professional development, specifically certifications and things that associations provide. I don't know that we have enough time to go over certifications and everything involved there. Would be happy to later on in the one-on-ones. But every association, largely 99.9%, participates in workforce development. So by advocating for this bill, I'm benefiting the entire community, irrespective of the segment of the economy they operate in. So things I rely on, and I'll try and wrap this up so the other speakers can also participate. A lot of communication, writing, and mastery of issues at hand, because so much of what I do is helping others become advocates for the shared cause. And that requires my mastery of the information so that I can inform and educate people in my community so that they can not only understand, but then advocate themselves. So lots of communication, writing in terms of official sorts of things to Congress people, also lots of social media and membership-based communications that aren't as technically dense. And also just in meetings, I have to at least sound like I know what I'm talking about in order to build credibility and fulfill my function. So lobbying, advocacy, I enjoy the heck out of it. And there's a lot of business skills, a lot of professionalism that can be had through that avenue. So happy to be here and very much appreciate the invitation.
Of course. Thank you, Jeff. So how about you, Brandy? What's it like to work for a nonprofit in the marketing field?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Similar to what Jeff said, and thanks to all the students that are here. I have a college freshman myself, and she would never put the time into coming here. So I admire everybody here. So yeah, I oversee Defenders of Wildlife's integrated marketing department. We're a team of about 17, and we use direct mail. Yes, the stuff that comes in the post office that you touch and feel, but also mobile, email, web, canvassing, television for a time this year, social media, to solicit funds and actions on behalf of imperiled wildlife in North America and their habitat. And really, I tried to distill the work that we do and why it's important down to really our job is to build issue awareness, to make people understand what's at stake when it comes to our nation's wildlife and their habitat and climate change and all of that. Convince people that Defenders of Wildlife is a part of that solution and get them to invest in us, whether it's with their time, talent, or voice. And then, of course, money. Fundraising is a big part of what I do. I frankly love my job. I started my career, so I graduated college in 1999, so I feel old, Jeff. And I graduated, I went into college on a pre-med track, decided I hated organic chemistry, switched to a biology major. Biology major and a psychology major, and really just fell in love with psychology. I thought I would be a counselor of some sort, but I ended up, graduating and just needing a job, fell into data and survey research collection with the National Science Foundation and found I really liked numbers. So I loved psychology and sort of the whys of behavior, and then the numbers and the data and the analysis, and, ended up getting a job in a startup branch of Epsilon, which is one of the bigger industry agencies in nonprofit space, and kind of got exposed to everything. I managed the front desk, so I got to work with everybody, and really just found that marketing and fundraising were sort of a calling for me. I enjoyed, combining that social psychology background. My job is to figure out what people are thinking, anticipate how they might change their thinking, and then attempt to influence their thinking. So, if people love dogs, can I get them to care about wolves? And if I can get them to care about wolves, can I get them to ask the Biden administration to relist wolves or invest in, coexistence measures to help protect? And so it was kind of bringing all that together for me was really fun. And most of my career is on the agency side. As I mentioned, that's where I started. But for the last 7 years, working directly for a nonprofit has been just eye-opening, because you just have so much more access to the work that's being done. You feel so much better about sort of calling for action, calling for funds when you see the immediate impact of the work being done and the work that everybody is engaging in towards our mission. And I think the only other thing I'll add is, in terms of skills, as I said, big part of it is social psychology. I never stop reading about the latest trends in psychology, but it's also mentorship and compassion. I joke, I taught daycare for 5 years. And so I joke that I use those skills all the time. And in some ways, I mean it tongue in cheek, but in other ways, I really enjoy helping people build their careers. And it's one of the things that I have been most honored to be able to do in the marketing space. And it's groups like the Nonprofit Alliance that really, whether it's starting with you all in college or myself, you know, as I look close at 50, it's being able to mentor and learn from other people is something that's really unique, well, in my experience, to this field. And it's pretty awesome. So kudos to you all for being here, and I will stop talking.
Thank you, Brandy. So Brian, I'm going to jump to you. Why don't you tell us more about your role in fundraising and development?
Yes, thanks, Shelby. And like everyone else, thank you for having me here today. And it's a pleasure to be able to speak to some of our future fundraising leaders here on the call today. Makes me feel old. You know, I work for the USO, wonderful organization. We have a very unique mission in that we're the only organization congressionally sort of chartered to support active duty military, no matter where they are around the world. Many of us connect us back to Bob Hope when he was doing tours. We certainly have evolved and do a lot more than that. Our mission is basically to always be by the side of our service members, no matter where they are in the world, in the most remote places, to provide them with morale boosting activities and chances to recharge and keep them strong. So that's our mission. My job is multifaceted in that first and foremost, my responsibility is to make sure that we have the funds to continue our operations, but also growing our funds so that we can increase the scope and impact of our mission on the lives of service members and their families around the world. That's a big part of my job. The other side is the marketing side, where I'm also responsible for the brand positioning, leveraging the brand to engage new audiences and new supporters, using the brand to build loyalty amongst our current supporters, as well as overseeing all communications, which includes engaging media and press proactively and reactively. So quite a bit on my plate on any given day. My journey here is one that sometimes I don't even quite know how I got here. Probably like many of us who are on the call today. I graduated from college in 1993 with a degree in commerce and marketing. Did not know anything about fundraising when I got out of school. Like many of us who have marketing degrees, I went into sales. I'd sold something called Yellow Pages. There were these things called phone books. I don't know if you guys know what phone books, many of you might not know what phone books are, but I sold ads in Yellow Pages, and stayed in the sales field for quite some time selling advertising. Eventually, I made my way into selling advertising in a large direct mail advertising piece at the time it's called Advo, which did coupons in the mail, different types of coupons. And so we worked with local and national retailers to put coupons and different offers in the mail. And that's where I learned about direct marketing, I learned about direct mail, I learned about targeting. After doing for that quite a while, like many of us, you wake up one day, you have an epiphany and you say, gosh, I really want to do something that has more meaning in my life, and literally just open the newspaper and found an opportunity with a wonderful organization called CARE that does international relief work around the world. And they were crazy enough to take a chance on me because I knew direct mail. I knew enough about direct mail marketing, and what they wanted me to come in and do was to oversee their direct mail program to their current supporters. So I appreciate that they took a chance on me and were crazy enough to take a chance on me. And that got my foot in the door in fundraising, which I've been doing for 25 years. But it started literally overseeing one program. And to what Brandy said, I would say having mentors is huge. Most of us don't get to where we're at by ourselves. I had a great mentor. I've had many great mentors. I had a great mentor there who took me underneath his wing. and taught me the ropes for direct mail fundraising. There were some tweaks of things that I had to learn. And then from there, I moved on to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Again, had another wonderful mentor who taught me a lot and even more beyond just direct mail, and broadened my whole horizon around fundraising. And so, I would encourage all of you to find mentors and people that you can learn from, who can help you learn more quickly, and be that sounding board for you as you embark on your career. I'll say in terms of some of the things that I do on a daily basis, it's a lot of things, but a lot of what I do is people management. I manage a lot of people, and my job is to optimize their performance, and everybody's different. So knowing how to relate to people is really important. Knowing how to relate to different people is important. Everybody's different. What motivates them is different. What they're inspired by is different. Coaching them is different. So it's important to really know how to relate to different people. Being organized and knowing how to plan is very important as well. There's a lot of things that come your way, and you have to be able to sort of multitask and reprioritize. So knowing how to do that effectively is really important. And also being able to think strategically and analytically in my role is very important. I have to be more forward thinking about how do we continue to adapt our programs and our marketing to broaden our tent of support, and also just knowing how to be analytical at looking at numbers and what they translate into is really, really important. And so I guess another thing I would say, I know many of you may say, well, what about an advanced degree? Is that necessary? I will tell you this. I'll just add this nugget that I don't think having an advanced degree is important when you get into the industry. I don't think it's something that necessarily you have to have when you go into the industry. But as you grow in your career, it is helpful because you may learn things that are important because like financial aspects, high level financial numbers and metrics for an organization, some of the key things that board members look at, and your accounting department and how things run operationally. So as you advance in your career, you may find that you need an advanced degree to increase your learning, which will prepare you as you continue to move forward. But I would say initially, my perspective is it's not as important, and to get in, learn from those experiences that you have. So thank you again for having me.
Yes, thanks, Brian, and great advice there as well. So Jack, you have an interesting background as a young nonprofit CEO/founder. So why don't you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you again for having me and all the other awesome folks here in attendance today. My name, for everyone watching, is Jack Griffin, as you can see on screen. I'm the founder of FoodFinder, and FoodFinder is a national nonprofit organization that uses both its website and mobile app to help food insecure families across the country find and get help from their closest food pantries. So really, to put it as simply as possible, we are here to connect the people looking for help with food with the places nearby that are already offering it. So with the information of about just over 45,000 food pantries and food assistance programs across all 50 states, we use, again, a bit of a unique approach when it comes to the nonprofit sector in terms of the fact that we are all virtual. FoodFinder's team is all remote. Our platform is how we have an impact. So unlike, the traditional sort of nonprofit website is, where you can learn about the mission, you can donate, you can sign up to volunteer. FoodFinder's website and again, our app are actually the means by which we realize the impact we hope to have with our mission. So just making sure that the folks who turn to us for help on trying to find out when and where to get free food assistance nearby is our specialty, and how we've been able to serve just over 2 million users of our food pantry locator just since the pandemic began. So in terms of a bit more about like my background, the sort of trope of the accidental entrepreneur and sort of stumbling my way accidentally into the nonprofit sector holds very true to me. I was watching a news story one night before school that was back in 2013. We were coming out of the Great Recession. So it was this story that showcased how difficult, or really just the difficulties of kids who were my age and their parents who were hit the hardest by the financial crisis, what life was like for them, not just the issues of homelessness, poverty, and food insecurity, but the stigma around these issues in our society, society that really values independence and self-sufficiency is going to in turn really look down upon those who aren't self-sufficient, even if it may be of no fault of their own. So really opened my eyes, got me fired up. And it was that sort of initial process of, I don't know where a food pantry nearby, where I live is. So I'm going to try and find one to volunteer at. And that's where I realized that this information on valuable social service programs wasn't just hard for me to find, it's hard for the folks who actually need the food being offered at these programs. So that's how FoodFinder was born. Think in terms of what I do and the skills I use in my current role as founder and CEO. I have been working full-time for FoodFinder for about 3.5 years since I graduated college. I went to the University of Michigan, where I graduated in 2019 with both sort of a combination of concentrations, half business and half social work. So it was a really cool curriculum that by the time I was an upperclassman, hopefully y'all can do the same with whatever your really core interests and focus areas are. By the time I was an upperclassman, pretty much all of the classes I was taking for like even my graduation requirements were directly relevant to skills and toolkits that I could use and then apply pretty much in real time to my work with FoodFinder. I've been working I've worked on FoodFinder twice as long as a full-time student in both high school and college, trying to grow it slowly but surely, like in between like midterms. I worked on FoodFinder for 6 years as a full-time student, and again, just 3 years now that I've been a full-time salaried employee since 2019. So those skills that I developed in college, and then of course, no better way to learn than by doing. I'm still pretty much the de facto like chief everything officer. Most of our work with FoodFinder is data related, of course, making sure that we can fulfill the promise of the folks who rely on us by giving them accurate, up-to-date, and reliable information on food assistance nearby. So I'm the only non-data quality related team member that's employed by FoodFinder. So if it's running our social media, fundraising, marketing, hiring, then it's still I wear a whole bunch of different hats, but it's a great way that even though the sort of my to-do list never ends and there's always more things to do, it's given me a ton of insight and appreciation for what is required to make not just an organization work. And again, a lot of parallels between small businesses that are for-profit, small, businesses, family businesses, startups, and nonprofits. Still, a lot of the parallels exist in terms of what's required to make it work. But still, right, we have the really advantageous benefit of having something that a lot of people, unfortunately, not that I take pride in it, but in the nonprofit sector, we have purpose as a really important North Star that can help us get through the tough times and can make it that much more rewarding when we're enjoying the good times. So I think in terms of the learning, the purpose, and having the privilege to lead an organization still small as we might be at FoodFinder, it blows my mind. I wake up grateful every day that I can do what I do for a living and help folks in the process. Still we do one thing pretty simple at the end of the day of helping people get this information. We're no one's savior, but the fact that we can be of service to our partners, to the people who trust us, then I think letting that faith, rewarding the faith that folks have in us, gives us the strength in the nonprofit sector. In FoodFinder, I think, and pretty much everyone in this call would agree that if we know why we're doing what we're doing, then that makes it whole, all the other sort of busy work or things that aren't as glamorous in the nonprofit field, it makes it a bit more digestible.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. And kudos to you for juggling school and running an organization. That's very impressive.
I'll let you know when I figured out how I did it.
Yes. Okay, so Rich, you're up. We'll jump to you. So tell us about your role in IT.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rich Kostro. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Shower Strength. We are also a nationwide organization focused on hunger and poverty issues. Our major campaign is the No Kid Hungry campaign, which is working to eradicate childhood hunger in the US. And we believe that we're almost there. We have the tools, we have the resources, we have the will in this country to do it. We're just working to align all those things together. As the CIO, Chief Information Officer, my job is to change the world. I mean, I think all of our jobs here on this call are to change the world. I listened to Jeff and he's talking about how he's changing the world with advocacy. I listened to Brandy and Brian talking about how they're changing the world by building support among the populace. I listened to Jack by changing the world by finding a need and filling it. My job is to change the world through marshaling the power of data and technology to help feed kids. We know that takes that will, that advocacy that Jeff is providing, takes that community support that Brandy and Brian are building. It takes that vision that Jack provides. When I bring the data and technology, I'm trying to quantify that. I'm trying to find real, specific, measurable ways that we could do things differently and better. So it's a fabulous job. I started in the nonprofit sector. I actually was an intern at Share Our Strengths many years ago, but I didn't grow up in the nonprofit sector. After my internship, I graduated college. I graduated Georgetown in '98. And then I had a really fun career in all sorts of different places. I worked at the White House under the Clinton administration. I worked in the national security space with the NSA and the FBI and the Defense Intelligence Agency and a lot of the scary 3-letter agencies that you see on action films. I spent some time in Iraq and Afghanistan with the US Army. And when I came back, I was part of Capital One's cybersecurity team. And throughout that entire time, I always remembered back my experience at Share Our Strength when I was an intern. And when in 2017, they created the role of Chief Information Officer and looking to find that person, I remembered all the great times that I had. And it was both the organization I loved with the role that I've always wanted to achieve. And so I applied for it and got it. So my path to the nonprofit space was nonlinear at best. And I think that makes the world of difference because I think, I'm just thinking about Brian, your story there about how you started selling phone books. I think what makes us successful in any job, but particularly in the nonprofit space, is the ability to look at the world from different lenses and from different angles and to pull together a bunch of different experiences. And that's what I do on my day-to-day job. I am not a technologist by any stretch of the imagination. I am, even though I'm the senior technologist in the organization, my job is to imagine a world that's different, try to break that vision down into some component parts and hire really smart people, much smarter and better at everything than I am to help that vision become a reality. So, and then once we have that team in place, to then systematically and consistently remove the barriers that are in front of them. So, changing the world, which is my job, is really hard to do because there's lots of forces that are fighting you. And so it takes passion, it takes energy, it takes a commitment, and it takes a little bit of an endurance, honestly, to keep revalidating that vision in front of you, tweaking it as the world changes around you, and to consistently find what's that next barrier in front of you and your team and eradicate it. So that way you can make the world a better place. And I love it.
Great. Thanks, Rich. And thanks for that's pretty much the theme of today is we're all here changing the world. So thanks for putting all of that into perspective. So I have one more question, and this is for all of you to answer. What do you love the most about your role? So we'll go back to who is first, Jeff.
Yeah, there's a lot, frankly, and I risk repeating myself, but I would say the mastery of subjects, helping to educate people, but getting away from some specific things. What's very beneficial, at least in my background and experience with nonprofits and associations, is just the sheer volume of different functions that I have participated in. I mentioned first half of my career was C3. That was more membership management, program focused, a lot of event management. and now it's much more communication focused and advocacy focused. So you can get a good idea of what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, and what you excel at in this sector, and that's something that I've appreciated, certainly.
Wonderful. Now, how about you, Brandy? Favorite part of working in your role?
Real collaboration, whether it's within defenders specifically, sometimes we have some wonky science policy that I don't understand and I need to learn it. People are always willing to help pitch in to kind of put together the message that will be understandable to most, but also just and looking at my co-presenters here, collaboration within the industry. I can't tell you how many times, whether it was 9/11, when I was working with Save the Children, or just recently COVID, where we can go to one another and say, like, this is what we're seeing. What are you seeing? What are you doing about it? What have you learned from it? And it just collectively makes the world a better place, whether it's learning from the USO or learning from Share Our Strength. It's pretty cool the way that we do come together, even if we do have, very different missions. So that would be my favorite.
Yeah, I like that part too. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, great question. I think probably like all of us, it's what I love the most about my job is every day I know what I'm doing is making the world a better place. It's helping to improve the lives of others. And and then having the opportunity to see that firsthand is so inspiring. And it feels like in some respects, I feel like all of us are taking the torch. It's our time to carry the torch in these organizations and keep them moving forward. I always say it to me, it's like such a responsibility to make sure we keep these organizations going because they have such a positive impact on the world. And as Brandy said, it's like a family. The nonprofit community is like a family. There's been so many great people I feel like I've grown up with the industry with, and they're friends and there's colleagues. And when we see each other, it's like a family reunion. And while we're in some respects competitors, in some respects, like, because we do raise money, but it's friendly and we all are here to help each other. And it is like a big family. And it's what I love about this industry. And I'll just say, lastly, it's for me, it's watching other people grow in their careers. I love having the opportunity to pay it forward and seeing other people, how I can help other people achieve their career goals and growth. And so that's been very rewarding as well.
Wonderful. Yes, agree. So Jack, how about you? Your favorite part?
Yeah, I kind of want to just say all of the above for what everyone else has said already. But I think the two main things that stick out to me is one, the learning, being able to learn so much about the issues that people can often hear a lot about in the news, but it's still only at a surface level. So you learn about the world, you learn about other folks you meet, with all the amazing folks you come into contact with. You learn about, again, the organization, what it takes to keep it up and running. But I think other than that, I also am very proud to be, even in small part, a representative of a, quote unquote young leader, trying to be the change we want to see in the world, right? It sounds cliche, but I'm probably around the same age as a lot of the people tuning in right now. Like, I'm 24, graduated college a few years ago. So depending on who you ask, I'm either the oldest possible Gen Z or the youngest possible millennial, because I'm around the border. But people our age, under 25, have heard a lot, especially being as connected as we are as a generation. We've seen a lot. We've heard a lot about how wrong everything is with the world, pretty much starting off with 9/11 and it only kind of going downhill from there. In our sort of mindset, at least for me, I'm kind of sick of hearing about everything that's wrong with the world. And like to Rich's point earlier, I want to be part of the ones working to do something about it, to fix it, and to help things move in the right direction, not even by announcing it or saying, or I'm taking this stance, or making it this known. I just want to do the work that can make things better for the people who may be struggling and who may be at the wrong end of some of these issues. So I'm one of many. I have my own thing going on, but you don't have to have your own organization. You don't have to have your own nonprofit or company to make a difference in the world. It's all needed. So I'm really proud that in my role, I can not just sort of be sort of an example that, my young self would have been proud of, but also I can meet amazing people that make me feel like slackers. And it's just everyone I meet is so inspiring in their own right. Could have nothing to do with my work, but the inspiration is sort of never ending.
Yeah, definitely is. And how about you, Rich? Favorite part of changing the world?
So having been on both the for-profit and the nonprofit side, I can say that without hesitation, the challenges, the difficulty, the opportunity to mentor, the opportunity to grow, all those exist in equal measure on both sides of that equation. I truly, truly believe that. And so that allows me to be, I love that because it allows me to be the best version of myself and constantly grow. But what's really unique about the nonprofit sector is when I'm really doing the work of being the best version of myself, the end result of that is that someone else also can then be the best version of themselves as a result of my work. When I was at Capital One, no matter how hard I worked, no one's life other than mine got better. But at Share Our Strength, I do the same amount of work. I solve the same hard problems. I work with the same great team. I mentor the same great up and coming stars. And when we do that well, there's hundreds of millions of kids who eat better because of it. And so that's that intangible extra that I love about the nonprofit space. Success is more than just mine.
So let's start with our Q&A, and then right after that, we'll jump into the one-on-ones where you can meet with each speaker individually for, more questions that you might have. So for now, I think what we'll do is, Abby, are you there? Do we have any questions in the chats?
I am here. We don't have questions in the chat. Maybe everybody's saving it for the one-on-one, or if somebody wants to throw something in quickly, we could go. There's lots of appreciation for the speakers.
Yes. Yeah. If anyone wants to unmute yourself, feel free. This is a good time to ask questions to the group.
I have a question for Jack. I was curious, you said your employees have always been virtual, and that's something new that all organizations have implemented because of COVID. And I was just curious, how have you built relationships with your employees since you've always been virtual, basically?
Yeah, of course. It's a great question. Thank you for asking. It's certainly a challenge. I definitely don't want to leave the impression that there's like a one size fits all approach, because it really does vary on wherever you are, the size of how many people you're trying to build relationships, or your place in the organization. But I think for FoodFinder, again, the first part is that we have the advantage. Another sort of thing with giving us wind at our backs is that even for us, I was like still as a high schooler trying to find a company here in Atlanta where FoodFinder is headquartered, trying to find a company that could help build this first version of our website, because I'm a non-technical founder. I never want to write a line of code in my life. It's just not for me. But one of the things of especially working remote in the nonprofit space and building relationships is, again, what's the common thread of, if you're walking alongside some folks towards the same better future that is the same reason you're working for that organization in the first place, then I think that kind of gives you a leg up compared to a massive organization or a for-profit company with 50,000 employees, 50 or dozens of offices across the country. Then I think you can close the physical gap of our developers, for instance, right now are in Europe. We have FoodFinder team members across both coasts across the country. You can close the physical gap very easily with technology, and then it gets to, again, just the people element of shared purpose, getting to know folks, and that's where you sort of have the tools at your disposal, right? So it's just how much you get into it, or how much you put into it is how much you get out of it. And I know that thankfully, just you don't always bat 1,000. So sometimes you think it's a good fit. When you first bring someone on, it might not be, or might not be meant to be. But that's all right, because at the end of the day, you'll if you're in the right place you'll find superstars that you can work with and people that you really want to spend time with virtually or in person. And then it's you can take it from there.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I think I saw another question pop up from Nanette. She said, I'm a founder of a nonprofit organization. How do you find the help to guide you?
I would tell her to email you, Shelby, with the Nonprofit Alliance. But look, there are resources all over the place. These umbrella organizations like the Nonprofit Alliance, similar to associations, they exist to provide resources, services, tools, education. So without having the perfect answer for you, I would say just embark on a search to look for it and start with Shelby.
And I would add, I completely agree, Jeff. And I think similar to the way I think if you're entering college, you're counseled to take advantage of office hours of your professors. I don't think there's any of I mean, when Shelby asked if I would speak here, I was like, yes, please. Like, somebody wants to hear me. I mean, you could easily find a similar nonprofit and just reach out and ask the questions that you have of whatever that counterpart is. I mean, Jack probably speak better to it, but I think Brian said in part of his introduction, like, we all want to pay it forward, at this stage in our career. So yeah, I think, yes, I would start with the Nonprofit Alliance, but I think just, taking advantage of office hours, whether it's, emailing the Senior Vice President of Data at Share Our Strength or the CEO of FoodFinder.
Yeah, I'd build on what Brandy's saying there, and I would say that what I found is that a little bit unique in the nonprofit space is there are lots of communities of interest out there. So last night I was at a CIO for Good event. So these are all the CIOs, Chief Information Officers of all the nonprofits. They get together twice a year just to check in with each other. We had dinner in New York City, and May will have an event in DC. There's other organizations that have marketers that come together. There's, I think there might even be a future CEO roundtable from TNPA, or I don't know, other organizations. People, the nonprofits get together and share all the time. So it's not always just the mentor-mentee. It's that peer mentorship model that's really strong in the nonprofit space, so that we're all learning from each other, and it's particularly fascinating.
Yes, we're all here to help for sure. And then one more question for the open room. Jesse said, how did you all overcome the fear of stepping into uncharted territory? And thanks for answering first, Jeff. The fear won't go away until you take a step or two. So that's a really good answer. But yeah, anyone else want to add on to that?
Wait, the fear goes away?
Yeah, I wasn't fully truthful there.
I had I keep going back to mentors, and I had a mentor one time. I sat in meetings and I would be quiet and I wouldn't say anything. And he told me, he says, Brian, when you're talking with me, you always have great ideas, but you don't share them in meetings. He says, don't be afraid to share them. The only bad questions are the questions that you don't ask. And probably a question that you have, 25 other people have. I really took that to heart. It made me understand that I don't have to be afraid that by asking a question, I'm perceived as not being smart, or maybe it's not going to be a crazy question. And I don't have to be afraid not to speak up, because no one has all the answers. And my input is as valuable as anyone else's in the room. And it really, him telling me that made me overcome my fears and saying, I have an obligation to speak up and I have something to contribute just as everyone else does.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Can I add to what Brian was saying? Because I think that there's not only no bad question, but there's no forever decision that any of us have ever made. And so stepping into the void of the unknown is not this forever commitment that you're making. You can try it. You can find out that you don't like it. You can find out that it was a bad mistake, and you can recover from it. Particularly you guys at the beginning of your career, dear God, I hope you change employers several times over the course of your career. I hope that you change, you learn things as you go along and you change the path that you've been on. I mean, to know everything that who you are and everything you want to be at this age, even at my age, is daunting. And so I don't worry about it. I just say, hey, these are the options in front of me. Maybe the bad choice is to stand still. So choose one, try it. If it doesn't work, back out, do the next thing.
And if I may add just very quickly with this question, totally agree with everything, but stepping into that void, as Richard said, I think is a good way to put it. If you don't work outside of your comfort zone, you're just simply not going to improve. You're going to stay the same. And that willingness, and I speak only for myself and my experience, but that willingness to step into uncharted territory, to step into the void, is a muscle that can be exercised. The more often you do it, the easier it becomes, the more faith you have in yourself. And again, I speak for myself, because also you do it, you find a little success, maybe you surprise yourself with how well you did, and that can be added to the pool of evidence to then call upon to make your next decision to step into an uncomfortable zone, and thus continue to augment yourself. So it's something that, in my opinion, you should always look for opportunities to step into uncharted territory.
Love that. Love that. And I don't want to miss Mary's question here. So she has our last question in the open group. What kind of skills are nonprofit employers looking for? I'm passionate to help people, specifically children or women's rights.
Yeah, I was just about to type it in chat, but I can save the step of, in my experience, I forgot who I got this from, but if it's always not tension, but when I'm looking for folks, for instance, and this also actually kind of harkens back to Felipa's earlier question of like, how do we build relationships or meet new people in a remote team? FoodFinder was hiring 2 interns this summer out of U of M, and we got 40 applications, and I at least gave a first round interview to everyone. I want to meet the person behind the resume, A, because I'm sympathetic, and B, not everyone has that kind of time, but I think if it's what's more important to FoodFinder's vitality than the people who make up the organization itself. To answer your question, Mary, how competent is this person in terms of having the skill set we need for the role? How committed are they to the mission and to us specifically? And then how compatible are they with, not to say that there's like a FoodFinder person out there or a personality, but compatibility and fit is such a weird nebulous term, but it's real in terms of understanding, are these folks that I really vibe with, for lack of a better phrase. And of course, that's not going to be the end all be all when you need, at least a baseline level of skills or, certain requirements, especially for more like hard skills or technical roles. But it's a combination. If I had the secret sauce for, hiring the perfect person 100% of the time, then, a lot of things in life will be taken care of. But it's just showing that, honestly, I would rather have someone with a fantastic fit for FoodFinder and good skills than fantastic skills and just a meh fit for us. Again, not a one size fits all, but in my take, as even recently hiring this past summer, that's what I was looking for.
And I'll build on what Jack said, because I also think nobody is expecting you to come out of college and be perfect at everything. But there's this sense, I think, especially when you first start a job, is you don't want to let them see you sweat, or you don't want them to know that you don't know. And so it is that fit for sure, but it's also like, acknowledge that you're just starting your career. Ask the questions, ask the why. I mean, a good manager is going to be able to answer, whether it's, why do we do it this way? Or, why is this organizational decision being made? Ask the questions. And if you get stuck, ask for help. I think we would all rather, especially with the more junior members of my team, I would much rather them ask me a question when they get stuck than to spend a day, working it out or missing a deadline or getting angry about it. I'm here to help you. Like, that's that is my job, and there's no shame in asking for help.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so these are all, it's great advice. It parallels everything we've been learning all day today. And especially Rich, you'll be glad to know Pamela's keynote was amazing. And you all said a lot of the wonderful things that she said as well, for our students today. So before we head into the one-on-ones, because that's going to close it out, I just want to say what a day first. It's been amazing. We learned the difference and similarities between voluntary health, advocacy, social service, nonprofit organizations. We also learned how to use Charity Navigator and other online tools to search and look for nonprofits, as part of your job search. And we got a chance to hear what it's like to work in marketing, public policy, fundraising, IT, and how to start your own nonprofit as a CEO at any age. So I just want to give a huge thank you first to everyone for joining us today. Again, thank you to all of our speakers and guests. Special thank you to the TNPA staff, Shannon McCracken, our CEO of the Nonprofit Alliance, Abby Graff, VP of Programs and Community Engagement, and our fall intern, Philippa Roberts. She's currently in school as well, and she helped with all these wonderful graphics you saw, did an amazing job. And also Kate McKinley with the RKD group, our Leading Edge Steering Committee, and the Nonprofit Alliance Foundation Board for making all of this possible. So with that said, for all of those who would like to stick around for the one-on-ones, we're going to get started with that. And I do hope to see all of you next year. We're hoping to do this every year and have more and more students join us for Career Day.